Welcome to Spiritual Foundations for Life. The Apostle Paul tells us in Galatians chapter 3, verse 11, no one who relies on the law is justified before God, because the righteous will live by faith. The Bible clearly teaches that believers are no longer under the law. But then if that is true, why do so many Christians still struggle with legalism? Why do some actually choose to live as though they were still under the law? Well, some Christians actually prefer to have someone else take responsibility to tell them what's right and wrong, rather than be responsible for their own choices. Others are ignorant of their spiritual life in Christ and the means by which they're to live under the new covenant. They're fearful of all the problems that immorality can bring, and so they seek the simple solution of just trying to live by the law, believing that in doing so it will keep them safe. Well, if we want to relate to God under the law, we need to know what the Bible has to say about legalism. First thing it has to say about legalism, Galatians chapter 3, verse 10, all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of the law. See, trying to live by the law just produces guilt. Why? Because Romans chapter 3, verse 23 says, we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. See, legalists become driven people who never reach perfection, and so they constantly struggle with guilt. Perfectionism is a self-destructive process. Secondly, about legalism, Galatians chapter 3, verse 21 says, if a law had been given that could impart life, then righteousness could certainly have come by the law. But the law is powerless to give life. Telling people that what they're doing is wrong does not give them the power to stop doing it. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6 says, he has made us competent as ministers of a new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Third thing about legalism, the law actually has the ability to stimulate our wrong desires. And it tempts us to do what it was intended to stop us from doing. Romans chapter 7 verses 5 and 8 says, when we were in the realm of the flesh, the sinful passions aroused by the law were at work in us, and so we bore fruit for death. Sin, seizing the opportunity afforded by the commandment, produced in us every kind of covetous desire. To illustrate this truth, all we have to do is tell our children, you can go here, but don't go there. Well, the moment we say that, where do they all want to go? Exactly where we told them not to go. Adam and Eve were commanded not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but they did, according to Genesis chapter 2, verses 15 to 17, and Genesis 3, verse 6. See, the forbidden fruit always seems to be the most desirable, as does the grass on the other side of the fence, as the old saying goes. But see, God's commandments are not meant to restrict us. They are meant to protect us. They reflect the nature of God, and so they are good. According to 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 7 and 8, the glory of the Lord was revealed when God engraved the law on stone tablets. So they're good. The law is good. But trying to live a righteous life by obeying the law can only lead to discouragement and defeat and even death. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 9 says, if the ministry that brought condemnation was glorious, how much more glorious is the ministry that brings righteousness? That's the new covenant, folks. Why do we try to live by the law, which only brings condemnation, when we can live by the Spirit, which brings true righteousness? Only by the Spirit of God can we live righteous lives and not carry out the desires of the flesh. Only by faith can we be justified, and only by the grace of God can we grow in Christ. As 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18 encourages us, we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory were being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory. Our key point today is that if we live by the Spirit, we will not carry out the desires of the flesh. And our key verse is Romans chapter 7, verse 8. But sin, seizing the opportunity that was afforded by the commandment, produced in me every kind of coveting. For apart from the law, sin is dead. Well, God bless you. See you tomorrow for another episode of Spiritual Foundations for Life.